Hey everybody, Anthony here. Welcome. It is Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 at just after 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm here at the camper. Made a couple videos testing out my coffee machine, and I wanted to post this, record this Bible study that I wrote a few days back, and I've entitled it Form Factor. And I want to open up with an illustration before I discuss some of what I'm going to be talking about this morning. And for all of you that watched the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight last Friday, I believe it was, the 15th, prior to that fight, the world saw training clips. We all saw the training clips of both these guys, with their coaches, their managers, etc., going through different types of training regime. But particularly with Mike Tyson, they showed a lot of his training clips, and when I watched them, I actually was in awe. This man's 58 years old. I'm a few years his senior, but he's 58 years old, and he looked like he had the same power and prowess that he had when he was younger. I watched him when he was younger. I watched him become champion and fight all these fights all the way through the completion of his career. So I was firsthand, eyewitness knowledge of this man's power and his boxing skill, his speed, his quickness, his agility, his punching power that, rivaled Rocky Marciano's. And so his form seemed perfect to me. His power, his execution were unmatched. He was following all of the protocols, it seemed, that his trainers, and he was doing everything by the book. Whatever they were showing him, he was doing by the book, what was written, what was prescribed for him. But then comes the fight. So during the fight starts, and, the first one or two rounds, he looked pretty good. Maybe he needed, I was saying to myself, to warm up a little bit, to get, feel your way around. You got to get comfortable in the ring because he had such an absence from, a real fight, a real boxing match. But starting after round two, strange things starting to happen. He started biting his glove. He started moving awkwardly. He looked sluggish. He looked like he was holding back. He looked off balance. He was getting hit with punches he should have been avoiding based on what I saw in his training regime. It seemed everything he had displayed during his training was given over to something very dark and sinister. To me, that's how it looked. I remember saying to my mother, my father, and my wife, we were watching the fight together, saying, this guy is something wrong. It looks like he, became possessed by something and just turned into another person after round two. It was quite remarkable what I saw. This is a picture, I believe, a good illustration of what happened to Israel when they were in the wilderness, when they were rejected or given over by Yahuwah. They had everything going for them. They were rescued from captivity in Egypt. They had his favor, Yah's favor upon them. 40 years in the wilderness, they were fed. Their shoes didn't wear out. Their clothes didn't wear out. They were given bread and water and everything they needed to survive. Everything they needed to survive. Moses was their mediator, their spokesperson, if you will. Moses was called to the mount for 40 days, where he was given laws, prescription, commandments, statutes, right rulings, loving instructions by the Creator. These things were in heaven prior to Moses receiving them. They weren't just made up. A system of worship to follow. A way to become and get close to the Most High, who was caring for them, who redeemed them from slavery in Egypt. But they abandoned their original training instruction, the same way I believe Mike Tyson abandoned his original training instruction and what he was shown and what he displayed in favor, in Israel's case, worshiping the host of heaven. And that brings me to what I want to talk about today in today's devotion. I'm rereading the book Come Out of Her, My People by C.J. Coster. And in that book, particularly in the beginning, in chapter 1, he talks about sun worship, that how it has become or had become merged with Messianic belief. It was merged into the church, into the assembly. And he speaks about that. That is what happened to the Christian world. He talks about this host of heaven, which comprises the sun, the moon, and the stars. Now remember, yesterday in my devotional that I did, I talked about the sun, the moon, the stars are a creation of the Most High. They are a creation. They are lights, he says in Scripture. And they are placed in the heavens for us, in the firmament more specifically. The sun being the most important. He did this to Israel after he brought them out of Egypt, the land of sin. He cared for them in the wilderness. He took care of them, but yet they became stiff-necked and rebellious. And in the book of Acts, chapter 7, 38, verse 38, 39, and 42, Stephen, before he is killed, preaches back to those surrounding him, those that wanted to kill him, the Pharisees, the scribes, and those people that were against what he was following, which was the way. He was following Messiah. But he goes back and he says, this is he that was in the church or the assembly in the wilderness with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai. He's talking about the angel of the presence. And with our fathers who received the lively oracles to give unto us, the living sayings, the 10 words, if you will, to whom our fathers would not obey, but thrust him from them, and in their hearts turned back again to Egypt. He says in verse 42, then God turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven. That's what I'm talking about, the sun, the moon, the stars. As it is written in the book of the prophets, O ye house of Israel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? And Stephen is going back to the book of 2 Kings, specifically chapter 21, verse 3, where it says, for he built again, speaking of King Manasseh, the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. So Manasseh's father, Hezekiah, destroyed these. He tore them down. But Manasseh rebuilt them because he was evil, and there was evil in his heart. And he reared up altars for Baal and made a grove, as did Ahab, king of Israel. So Ahab, the other king, in the other part of the kingdom, did the same and worshipped all the host of heaven and served them. They gave up their first love, the commandments, the statutes, the right rulings, in favor of the host of heaven, worshiping the stars, the sun, the moon, and deities related to that. And those deities and systems, worship systems, pagan systems, weave their way back into the assembly when Constantine, it'll say later in the book, brought them into and merged them with so-called Christianity. They rejected the living words. In Deuteronomy 4:13, it says this, and he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. He gave them the covenant, in writing on stone of tablets. Moses wrote it, the Torah, in the 40 days he was in Mount Sinai, and they were to perform works, to honor it and perform these commandments and live by them, where they would be set apart from these pagan nations that were doing all these other detestable things, up to and including sacrificing their children in the fire to Moloch. Even commandments, it says, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. In Revelation 12:1, it speaks about being given up to the host of heaven. And there appeared a great wonder, verse 1, in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Some say that woman is Israel, some say it's the church, and some say it's both. But getting back to us today, we have given up as a nation our first love. We've given up the commandments, the right rulings, the covenant, if you will. And we have a new covenant, and it's mentioned many times in the New Testament, or renewed covenant. Hebrews 8:6, Hebrews 9:15, Hebrews 12:24. And Messiah is the mediator of that new covenant that is written on our hearts. We need to, as a believers and followers of the Most High, if we say we are followers of him. Many people say, what would Jesus do? You know, that famous little saying that people wore on their bracelets. Well, I would say this in closing. What did Jesus do? Not what would he do, what did he do? He came and lived out the Torah. He didn't do away with it. He taught what they were doing wrong, the Pharisees, the scribes, the teachers of the law, the Sadducees, the lawyers, all these people. And he showed the proper application and lived it out. And so did his apostles. They didn't abandon it. They followed it. So what would Jesus do is, what did he do? What did he do? And he followed his Father's commandments. And in the book, Come Out of Her, My People, he goes into great detail on how all of this, these pagan rituals and rites and words and things crept into the church, and today are still there. We still worship the sun, Sol Invictus, on December 25th, which goes back to Nimrod, which all funnels up to Satan. Do you understand the form factor? You could have perfect form in the gym, but when it comes to the real fight, if you've abandoned everything that you learned and built your skills upon, and that you're relying upon, and you abandon them and then open your heart to other things to come in, your form is going to suffer. It's going to be off. Your form factor is going to be off. Just like what happened to Mike Tyson in the fight. Just like what happened to him in the fight. Perfect form in the gym. Perfect execution. Perfect conditioning, it seemed. Where I said, this guy's not going to last 30 seconds if he gets hit with one of those punches. Yet when he got into the ring, he abandoned his first love. He abandoned the commandments, the training rituals, the order that his coaches gave to him. He abandoned it for something else. And it seemed very dark and sinister. And that's what's crept in to our world and into the assembly today. And to many people who profess to be believers, but yet follow the host of heaven. And it says in Scripture, he gives them up. He will give you up. Adjust your form today and get back to true and proper form. Anthony signing off. Yah bless everybody. John 15:5.